So we've been kicking around different ideas weekly, pretty much on the Poor Horseman.
Right.
You got your boy LP here, and we got
Phil. What's up?
And y'all see, we in a little different position today because we trying to be. What's the word we try to be today?
Professional.
we are away from the bar, and we thought that it would be good to start giving people some actionable things that they could take from our content. So you already know we do the regular Poor Horseman episodes. Mm-hmm. You know we do Horseman reviews when we review our favorite classic movies. Yeah. And then Phil, what do we say we was gonna name this one?
We're gonna call this Horseman Academy.
Yeah, Horseman.
We want people to tune into this and learn something and really know that we can dive into it. All of that craziness on the Horseman. This is for our more dialed down people right here. We want to teach you something, give you some information, because there's nothing like spreading information, right? Exactly. Good information.
And today, personal friend of mine.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have wanted to start this with anyone else. I called him, told him he made time in his day to get this done.
Right.
Brother Kevan Shelton is a father. He's a husband. He's a business owner. Mm-hmm. You will see his name more and more. You may not see his name, but you will definitely see Park Street Homes, Marriage and Real Estate, Aisha Shelton team. Of course, we're going to big up his wife right now as well, because they're a dynamic duo. And today on the pod, we have our real estate specialists, and we're going to start this with real estate because who don't want to be in real estate?
For sure.
Mr. Kevan Shelton. Welcome to the pod, sir.
Welcome, Mr.
Hey, thank you for having me.
Did we do a decent enough introduction? I'm sure you got other stuff you want to say also.
No, nothing. You ain't have to say half that.
Nah, man, we gotta do that.
Husband, father, all the rest of that stuff is like below the line. It's like I'll put all that. I'm gonna be a father and a husband till the day I'm dead. All the rest of this shit go.
It can't go away. So that is true. That is true. So the reason why we wanted to start with real estate, Phil proposed a question to me, was it 2 weeks ago, about the economy?
Yeah.
And we were talking about inflation, real estate, gas prices, etc. And I was probably either one, too drunk, or we were clouded too much to where the information can get out appropriately.
Right.
So we thought, let's start our academy, and let's start with someone who's been in all facets of the real estate game.
Yeah.
So maybe you give an introduction to people around your real estate journey.
So, Kevan Shelton, for me, real estate started 16 years ago, and it started from a job. It started from the build side. So I'm a builder by trade. I build homes, buildings, whatever you could name. I wanted to build it since I was very young. I became more than that when I met my wife, because I could never figure out the ownership part. I could only figure out the build. Like, you give me a set of plans, I can go build it. I'll figure it out.
Yeah.
But writing the check is a much different thing.
Yeah.
And I started my first construction company when I was 19. And I figured out very fast that it was very hard to pay the bills, pay yourself, and make sure everybody good.
Yeah.
You end up with nothing left over at the end of the day.
Makes sense.
So very fast I said, I got to go get a job, and I'm going to go make the most money that I can make doing what I love to do. And I'll do it for free, but I'm smart enough to make them pay me for it.
Yep.
But that still doesn't give you ownership. Right. And it's funny because somebody asked me when I was in college, I worked for a big construction company called Hensel Phelps, and the vice president of construction asked me, he said, how do you recruit and retain African Americans in construction? And I said, it's like a championship basketball game. And we're in the stadium, we're in the middle of the court, but we don't know the game going on. We don't know we in the stadium. We don't know we in the city.
Yeah.
And it's based on awareness, right? So we're not aware that every day when we walk the street, it's real estate.
Okay. So maybe explain that, because I want to go back to you having the foresight at 19 to start a real estate company first off.
I don't think.
Well, it wasn't a real estate company. It was a construction company.
Okay.
The difference is this. If I was smart, I would have bought a house and flipped a house at 19. I wasn't doing that. I was just working. I was a contractor.
Okay.
I knew how to work. But knowing how to own is a whole different thing. Right? It took me years and years to learn how to own. Almost a decade past that point to learn how to own. I never bought a house. I was a project manager making $100,000 a year, didn't own a house.
Wow. Okay.
Right? My wife bought her first house at 25, making $30,000 a year. Got paid $20,000 when she closed.
Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't.
Yeah.
So it wasn't necessarily that I was so smart. I had a skill set. Right? And it's the blend of the information that helps you leverage your skills to ownership. That's the difference. Right? So when I say everybody's walking around in real estate, literally from the car you drive to the clothes on your back, that's somebody's version of real estate. But also in addition to that, everything is by somebody's design, right? So this shirt, I designed it. I said, I want my logo here. I want this cut. I want it to look like this. And that's a version of creation. Well, it's the same thing with real estate. The city's laid out the way the city's laid out. Somebody decided that.
Yeah.
This building is here because that, man in the hallway, he stood and he said, I want this building on, blase in Houston, Texas, and I want it to look like this. All of that is just literally somebody choosing to create whatever that looks like. From Allen Brothers Landing all the way to Pearland, Sugarland, it's all the same thing. Where we fall off is we don't realize that power is ours for the taking too. Right? Okay. So I could have bought it 21 and I didn't. Could have bought it 25 and I didn't.
You didn't know.
I didn't know.
Gotcha.
Right? So that's the thing about real estate. Folks been playing this game forever, since the beginning of time. Landlord is a lord of lands. Right? It's like, so literally since the beginning of time. Massa Musa is generation. Like, and that was all real estate, the minerals in the ground, the kingdom of it all. So it's an old concept. We just don't take advantage of it. Nobody knows. Like, if somebody walked up to you at 17 and said, hey, do everything you can to save $6,000 and put a FHA loan on a house with whatever your first job is, you would be tremendously more wealthy.
Agreed.
Before my oldest daughter was born, my aunt brought me a foreclosure. That foreclosure was $9,000. I needed to come up with $1,000.
Yeah,
and have my credit right.
be good. Yeah, yeah.
And I did not do it. That house now is worth $200,000.
Wow.
That was 15 years ago.
Wow.
So think about that. It was $9,000 and I couldn't figure it out. I was like, I don't know where I'm gonna get this. I should have went and asked every single person I know for $100 and got the $1,000 to put it down.
And we're going to talk about group economics in this process as well. But maybe now that we know kind of your history, let's talk about how people even get started in real estate. I mean, there's so many different things that people can do. We've had people talk about Airbnbs.
Yeah.
We've had people talk about single family dwellings that they rent as the actual landlord.
Yep.
Multifamily dwelling. There's people on the lender side. There's people on the builder side. There's so many different avenues. If you were just to give just some intro information to people, what would be a way you would say get starting in real estate?
So I would say for the average everyday person, right? Like, this is average advice. Buy a house for yourself.
Okay.
And at the end of the day, if you had to rent out every room in that house and go live with your mama, that house would pay for itself and pay you something every month. And you're still building wealth, right? So if you have the ability to buy a house, that's your first step.
Let me ask you this, Kev. Does it have to be a decent house?
No. Like, you see folks go into communities, folks that don't look like us, they go and buy the worst house because they can get it the cheapest. They live in that house just like it is for 10 years, tear it down and build $1 million house on the spot. Because they had the cash the whole time, but they want the value. So they gonna go live. And I mean, the house would be trash. Like, I remember I went and stayed with my cousin in Atlanta, and he was staying in the house with 12 other sets of people. Like, it was a communal house. That's what they call it or whatever. But they all paying rent. The house was raggedy.
Mm-hmm.
And the guy who owned the house, he ain't do nothing to it. He was like, look, you want to rent this house? You rent it as is. You know, whatever you do to it, whatever. 5 years from that, you go back to the entire area. It's completely different. They scraped that house. They built a new $1 million house. He just wanted to cover the note.
Do we have the patience for that though?
That's the problem.
Okay.
Real estate is a patience game.
It's a patient game.
It's time in the market.
Ah.
If I would have bought that house 15 years ago, sure, that $1,000 down, $9,000 mortgage, which I probably would have had paid off.
Yeah.
By
Without
any,
question.
I mean, now I pay it off in a year. At the
Yeah.
time, like
Question.
whatever.
Yeah.
But 15 years removed, that house would have given me $200,000 in net worth, $200,000 in cash. Like the land alone, it's not even the house.
Tough.
And that's when we talk inflation.
Right.
Because
Remember you said
inflation is in real estate,
Mhm.
or it really was major back in the early part of this year.
Yeah.
It started to slow down some now,
that.
but people who bought properties in like 2019, 2020, a lot of them have doubled in value from when they purchased in 2019,
Wow.
2020.
So it's
But
just
see, that's what's scary to folks too, though. But think about it like this, and I'll give you an example. Everybody's worried about interest rates right now, and they're like, "Oh man, interest rates are 5%, almost 6%." So I was looking at the properties we own that we keep as rentals and we live in, and I said, "Well, man, how does interest rates affect?" You know, like maybe we don't want to do a refinance, or maybe we whatever. So I looked at one of our properties, that first house that my wife bought. Our interest rate, we refinanced that house in 2017, maybe 2018. Our interest rate on that house is 5.5.
And when did she buy it?
She bought that house in 2008, 2009.
About 7 years.
But she bought that house for $90,000. They paid her $20,000 at closing because they were doing all the stimulus.
Yeah.
That house mortgage was $700. We've kept that house at $700. We rent that house out for $1,600 every month. So that house pays us the difference in that every month. Here's the thing. We took a HELOC on that house to do our first investment property. We took $25,000. Boom, cash. We put that into another property.
And HELOC, for people who may not know.
Home equity line of credit.
Okay.
Wow.
So
Okay.
that's when we were still living in it. I used my credit to go buy the next house, right? Then we put a tenant in that house. So now that $25,000 we put on the third house, we flipped that money, but we never had to pay it back because you know what we did? We refinanced that house, took another 50 grand out. So now on that house she paid 94. We're all in at maybe like 125,
And you flipped it 3 times.
and we flipped it 3 times. But here's the crazy part, and this was 2018. Was how many years ago? 24 years ago.
Yeah.
In that 4 years, that house now is worth $125,000 more than it was when we refied.
Wow.
So my mortgage is only $900 on that house.
Wow.
But my interest rate is 5.5. So it goes back to the interest rates.
Yeah.
Are you worried about an interest rate if something cash flows? And it's relative to time.
Yeah. The where it is, the house, does that matter as well?
It does. It
Okay.
can.
Okay. Does that does it raise the value of it? Of
Sure,
course.
sure,
Okay.
sure. So,
okay.
I mean, real estate is definitely area specific,
Okay,
right?
okay.
Like you could build the Taj Mahal in Sunnyside if you want to.
Yeah.
But does it make sense?
There you go.
So you want to invest your money in something that makes sense, but that's why I say start where you are with buying a house. If it's a house that you'd live in, somebody like you would live in it, right? So if I got 2 kids and a dog and my wife, and we need a 3-bedroom, 2-bath in any major metro in the city, if I'd live there, another guy with a wife and 2 kids and a dog would live there, and I can rent it to him because he might not own a house, and he gonna pay me every month, and I might make $300. Well, $300 pay my car note.
Yeah, straight up.
$300 pay my light bill. It'll offset some of the cost of me living.
Makes sense.
The goal is just to offset your expenditures,
Okay. So
and then slowly you build your wealth.
So you mentioned the first level would be purchasing a house.
Yep.
But let's say I'm past that.
Okay.
I got a primary residence. What should I be doing next then if I wanted to
Expand.
elevate my way and expand into real estate?
So, and my wife hates this, but I tell everybody, the plan matters. You got to start
Okay.
with a plan, right? You have to know what you want, right? So for me, at this stage of my life, I wouldn't go buy another single family home. It's not going to make a difference for me. Right. But somebody else, you say, okay, well, if I own one house, the next step would be to go buy a second house. But why? Right. Like, I wouldn't advise you to go buy a second house.
Yeah.
You're too smart with money. You don't need to buy a second house. That $500 a month or whatever you're going to make is not going to make enough of a difference. You're not going to build wealth fast enough commensurate to your skill set. So you have to start with the plan in mind to know, do I need to go buy a second house? Or maybe I need to save my money up to buy an apartment building. Maybe I need to invest in a deal. Maybe
what would you give him? Because you know in his situation, to make because
I don't know if you want that answer.
No, let's talk about it because I want to know, because he is very smart with money and I learned so much from him. But we all can learn, right?
Sure.
And so take his position where he's in. What advice would you give to him where he would make profit?
And before he answers that, this is a part of these conversations that we like to have.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that's why this type of content is powerful.
Yeah.
That's why people like Earn Your Leisure.
Yeah.
Because you get an inside look on how people handle different situations in an environment where we're all comfortable.
Yeah.
And we do this off mic as well. So this isn't, us just talking now.
Yeah.
We do this off mic. But go ahead, Kevin.
I mean, the next step, like, real estate is more than just property. Real estate can be a version of anything, right? It's an asset. It's an asset that produces money. For him, with his level and his knowledge and his skill set, he needs to buy a business because that's the only next step.
Gotcha.
Right? Because at a point, you go past what a house could do for you. I'm past what a house could do for me.
A business building or business?
No, a business that operates and generates
cash flowing business. Okay, gotcha.
I'll give you an example. I have a friend hasn't been on Poor Horseman, but he's been on some other podcasts. So 18 years ago, probably this
And help
year.
us out with him being on Poor Horseman.
For sure.
Oh, yeah. That's a phone call. That's
Okay.
easy. That ain't even the thing.
Okay. Okay.
So 18 years ago, he pulls up to my mama's house in a truck with a mosquito on the back of it. And he says, hey, man, I just started this new job. I'm selling mosquito systems.
Oh, I know you're talking about. Yeah. Okay.
So I says, well, does this work? Like, he's like, oh, yeah, man, it works. Show me how it works or whatever. So fast forward. Now, this is one of my older brother's friends. I hadn't seen him in probably 15 years.
Gotcha.
He comes to an open house and he says, hey, man, I was watching social media, whatever, and we reconnect. Well, he's been in that business now since then, so 18 years.
Yeah.
Now he's the biggest mosquito system operator in all of Texas. And he has an office in Florida, in Dallas.
Wow.
Whatever. So his biggest investment of his time the last 20 years was building this business. Now he owns a bunch of houses because he makes the cash. It doesn't matter, right? Like the cash that his business generates will supersede anything that a house could provide for him.
Gotcha.
So when he asked me about rental property, I'm like, why are you buying a rental property? You need to go and buy an apartment building. Or you need to go buy whatever, because the hole is too big to fill.
Gotcha.
One house ain't gonna pay your bills. If my bills were $500 a month, one house would do it.
Yeah.
And then after I got that house, then what? Right? Every step you go to, you create a new problem for yourself.
Gotcha.
Definitely.
So the level matters.
Oh yeah, 1,000%.
Gotcha. Okay.
Okay. So let's then say we give some advantages and disadvantages to a few things. So everyone is talking Airbnb right now.
Sure.
Everyone is. What do you see as some positives as a person who's done it? Give people your, some background there. And then what do you see as some of the negatives behind Airbnb? And then we'll rifle through a few other things as well.
So Airbnb is an operating business. So
it's not passive.
It's not passive.
And we need to get that out to people.
That's the biggest misconception people have. People like, oh, you set it and forget it. And you got the systems and whatever. You can have the systems. You can have the processes. You can have everything you want. When there's a party at 4 a.m. and the only person left to call is you, you're going to break that mug up because it's your property or it's the property you rent and your name is signed on a piece of paper. So that's the thing about Airbnb is it's an operating business. It takes a lot of work. It's like running a hotel. And I managed a hotel. I managed a hotel for 5 years. So I like running a hotel is every holiday, every Christmas, every phone call at midnight or hurricane. When Hurricane Ike came, I was chasing an awning down Main Street from Hotel Icon. Because I was the manager of the hotel.
Yeah.
And when our awning flew off, I don't want it to hurt. I'm responsible. I got to chase that bitch down the, you know, whatever. So that's the same way Airbnb is. You're ultimately responsible. It's like running a hotel.
For sure.
But it does generate cash. So the benefit is it's a cash flowing business. It generates cash. Now, the problem is we live in a market that's not very touristy. Now, I know a lot of Airbnb hosts that do very well in this market, but I also know a lot of people who get burned up. And, you know, I've seen people in the last couple of years, people find $20,000, $30,000 out of thin air and start an Airbnb business, operated in the red for 18 months and then just walk away from it.
Yeah, that's tough.
Because the idea of it and the actual execution of it are two different things.
Okay.
And if you can find 20 grand to buy furniture and furnish an Airbnb unit and pay the debt service on this note, you need to go buy a duplex. So you need to buy something that you can own and long term have a more passive flow. Because the majority of the people who are doing it, they're really chasing an income problem. They're not necessarily chasing an investment problem. They don't want to invest their money. They want to make more money than they make.
They're not thinking about net worth. They're thinking about cash.
Exactly.
Yeah, and most people are thinking about.
Most people have an income
cash.
problem, not an investment problem.
Gotcha.
They just want to make more money. And Black people specifically, you talked about patience.
Yeah.
Our biggest problem as a community is we're impatient.
Very.
We got to live it now. We want the car now. We want everything now.
Facts.
You know, I had a very high level conversation yesterday. I drove to have a conversation with a mentor, and his advice to me was like, I could plug you in an organization right now. You can make $1 million a year right now. He's like, with the skill set you have and running your business right now, I could plug you in somewhere running somebody else's business. They'll pay you $1 million. You make a lot of money. So what my answer to that was, I don't need $1 million.
Straight up.
My life don't run off $1 million. So I don't have that hole that I need to fill that I need. If you handed me $1 million today, I wouldn't need it. I'd reinvest it in my business, but I personally don't need it.
Gotcha.
So then the question becomes, if I'm going for something more than just $1 million, right? What am I building? But that's a long ride. And he said, the journey that you're on will make you insanely wealthy, but it's a long ride.
Yeah.
So I got to buckle up for that, right? Like the end of that conversation, you know what it left me with? This going to be hard, but it'll be worth it.
Yeah.
In 10 years.
Straight up.
In 15 years. But I got to ride this ride for 10, 15 years. But I've seen the outcome. You ride this ride for 10, 15 years, you get paid out. And it's much bigger than $1 million. So somebody could pay me $1 million a year for, let's say, the better part of the next 20 years of my life. That's $20 million. Or I could build my business up to pay me $1 million a year. And then when I sell my business in 20 years,
10x.
It's worth $400 million.
Yeah, exactly.
Smart.
Exactly.
And I don't need the $1 million.
Yeah.
I think that as I hear you talk, like you would have to get to a certain level of maturity to even grasp what your mentor was saying to you, giving you that opportunity. Because a lot of people, such as our people, would be like, okay, I'll take over that $1 million. Oh, that man, our people don't even see 100,000, 150. You get what I'm saying? So for you to be like, that don't kind of make sense to me. I think I see another thing. That's a different level of maturity though. But I think that what you telling people this now, they can understand like it's a bigger picture. It's a bigger thing that. And when you said 10x, I was like, oh shit, like damn, that's
true.
Over time,
he see it all the time.
Yeah,
like,
over time,
that's true.
Yeah.
I mean, so he told me the story about a home building company that a guy started. It took him 5 years. He basically had a plan to sell this company. So what he did was he built an operation. He had a bunch of capital behind him, so that's a different thing.
Yeah, but
he built up an operation. Literally only closed a fraction of the houses of that size of operation. And in 5 years, he said he put it in a nice folder, a nice book, and he sold it to a company for $500 million in 5 years.
Okay, so keep that there. So Advantages, disadvantages, single family, multifamily.
Multifamily advantages are it's a lot of things in one roof, right? So it's an easier asset to manage. But once you get to a certain size, it's under management, so it really doesn't matter. Single family is a lot of moving parts, so you really got to know what you're doing. When we started investing, and the reason we started our company was really just an investment for us, I had a goal of 65 doors. So 1 year alone, I bought 32 of them.
Okay.
And what I learned in buying 32 properties in 1 year was that I did not want to own 65.
Okay.
Because it was 32 tax statements, 32. I had niggas setting up tables, forgive my language.
You good.
Niggas setting up tables in driveways selling crack out of a vacant house that I hadn't renovated yet. It was a whole lot of moving parts. And it was like, this is too much.
Yeah.
And it's too many places, right? Like, you got to remember this address. I was like, yeah, I don't want this. I don't want 65 versions.
Could you have
of
property
this.
management that though also? Your operation of 32.
You can, but when it's a single family house, the numbers are too small.
Agreed.
Right?
They're
So-
taking too much of your
And even though I
yeah.
bought it for fractions on the dollar, the 10% of management, and then you got to renovate each property, you got to refinance each property. It's just too many moving parts. Think about it like this. For the same amount of money that I bought that for, I could have put that money in a 50-unit apartment building,
and had all
and
your
it would have been worth triple that.
Yeah.
But I didn't realize that at the time.
And you make the value in the apartment building yourself. If you put in laundry, if you add carports, if you do different things, you're not subject to what the appraisal people would say in multifamily.
It's forced appreciation.
Yeah.
Versus market appreciation.
Yeah.
Which is single family is all market. Multifamily is all forced. Whatever your rent rate is,
Exactly.
is what your property's worth. Versus whatever the market says your property's worth, your property's worth. So on a small scale, single family is the way to go if you're onesie twosie it.
Yeah.
Once you get past 10, it stops making sense. Like I have a friend who owns hundreds of properties. I mean, like hundreds. He owns a couple of small multifamilies, all under 10 units, and then he owns a bunch of single family. It's just because he likes it.
Yeah.
It's not because he has to,
Okay.
and it's not a smart investment. Like, it's literally he just likes single family. It's quick. He can get in and get out and refi and whatever, and he just likes having a bunch of doors. He also runs a huge operation to support.
Oh, I can imagine.
Yeah.
When I know a
I
lot
can
of people who own, like Grant Cardone, go buy an apartment building, he don't
even
it's
touch it.
500 units. He don't see it.
Yep, he don't even see
Like, it don't even matter.
Like the one he bought here, off of, is it off Washington?
I don't know. He has two here.
Yeah,
he
he
has
bought-
one off of Buffalo Speedway and one off of something.
Somewhere. Yeah.
But they're all Class A,
They
so
are.
it don't even matter.
Don't even matter. Yeah, at that point. So maybe, because here in a second, we're going to break, and some of this will be on our Patreon because we want to give people some more actionable stuff. But before we do that, people will like this conversation and they'll want to know more about you. So can you tell people about Park Street, Marriage and Real Estate, what you all have been working on and what you all are doing as a part of the community in the 3rd Ward where you were born and raised?
Cool. So Park Street Homes is our home building company. We're a production builder, so we build 20 plus homes a year, all inside the Houston urban core. So inside the loop, right outside the loop. Our goal is to grow that up to 100 plus homes a year. So for me, I'm super, super passionate about that because number one, we've never seen it done by a black man, right? Like we've never seen a black home building company grow to those sizes to hit those numbers. And then number two, this is my investment, right?
Yeah.
Like, this is how I'm spending my time. I'm very passionate about seeing where my team will take it, hiring amazing people, things like that, and the impact to the community. For us, we started off at home because not only am I from 3rd Ward, but that's where I wanted my family to live. And when we looked for housing, there was no housing that my wife would live in. So it's like, well, I'm a builder, I'll go build it, right? And that's how we got started. So my wife runs our sales team, the Aisha Shelton team. So anything that you need buy and sell in real estate, we can do it. And any house that you're looking for, we have houses available for sale. Marriage and Real Estate is our podcast. That's really our opportunity to talk to other couples. And we used to sit down with couples one-on-one. Like people come to our house, we'd have dinner, and they'd say, how do we get into real estate? And what we found is it's really hard to touch a bunch of people individually.
Definitely.
But we can put our perspective together and really reach the masses with our podcast. And we've been doing it the last 3 years. You know, it's funny, the anniversary of our Freedom episode just came up on my phone the other day, and that's the episode we left our jobs at. So hearing the perspective from then to now is an interesting thing, but that's what our day-to-day is. So parkstreethomes.com, marriageandrealestate.com, same thing on socials, and that's where you'll find us.
Got one question before we get out of here. Balancing your time. So as we started the pod, I heard both of y'all saying, yeah, you don't have time. You don't have time, right? And so I want to know, have you figured that out?
No.
As far as balancing your time? Okay.
No. And honestly, it's a struggle. Like when I leave here, I'm going to therapy now.
Yeah.
Because one of the biggest things for me is I'm so passionate about the work.
Yeah.
Like I wanted to be a builder since I was 12.
Yeah.
So every day I wake up, it's a blessing. Every day I wake up, I'm excited to do it. It's hard to leave that at home.
And as a person who knows him personally, he definitely takes it home. Like, yo.
I love it. I think I wake up in the middle of the night thinking about it.
Wow,
like,
that's beautiful, man.
I've never experienced anything like the joy of going to work, other than maybe the birth of my children.
For sure.
Okay.
But I feel that passionately about it, right?
That's beautiful.
So
man.
every day is like that. So, I mean, that's just fun. So leaving that is hard.
Yeah.
And finding other things to do with myself. So I'm getting into fitness, thanks to some friends.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm getting into really being present in the moments that I'm not at work, to leave work at work.
Yeah.
But we worked real hard to have this life, so it's hard to let it go.
For sure.
Yeah,
I understand.
We broke our backs to live it, and we're having a fucking blast. Like, it's amazing.
Man,
Yeah.
That's cool.
Okay, so our Patreon question for those of you who will stick around after will be what to do if you have, what's a good dollar amount? Should we say 10,000, 5,000? What?
Let's say 10.
Okay.
Yeah.
What to do if you have 10,000 today, liquid, that you can use in some form of real estate? We're going to pause here. That'll be a part of our Patreon. For those of you who will watch this, again, rate us, review us, give us 5 stars. If you like this new Horseman Academy, if you like Phil Slacks, you know what I'm saying? Like, Phil never, I couldn't leave it without no joke.
I have to say,
I couldn't
you
leave it
are
without
mad
joke.
dressed up.
My guy always is clean, So, I had to bring some jokes.
He got gold on. He got a whole, like, I'm like,
this
nigga look good. Like, you doing your thing. Like, go ahead.
But we appreciate y'all rocking with us again at
sure.
Marriage and Real Estate, at Park Street Homes, at Aisha Shelton Team.
Yeah, man.
Go tap into that, at Kevan Shelton, also on Instagram. And then, of course, y'all know Poor Horseman. You know Phil the Don. You know me, LeBron Palmer. So we'll be out. Patreon, we'll do a little bit for y'all there as well.
Yeah.